Thanks for including us in here. I'm going to be quickly opportunistic to say I think we're seeing a lot of inspiration here, and we've seen over the last 2 days the seeds for collaboration, and we really appreciate the enthusiasm, the curiosity we're seeing. And in the spirit of what Alex said, in terms of thoughtfulness and listening, I did want to say you're going to obviously see a very small subset of the innovation that's possible here. But all that to say that to the question that came in the panel, with Envisage and Envisage, we're certainly expecting to see a whole host of innovations spanning the richness and diversity of aging. So please know that we hear you, and we will be looking at all kinds of innovators and startups. You saw many of them in the startup map there. But we do need to hear from you, so I want to take the opportunity to invite you to keep connecting with us. Go on the Envisage website and let us know what you think and what the needs are. With that said, my role at AgeWell is to work with our partners, often in industry, but also not-for-profit and community groups, bringing them together, connecting the dots, many of them to participate in the community labs that we hope will be a key part of Envisage, but of course also the startups. And I met Jay about 4 years ago, and I can say, he'll be too humble to say this about himself, is that Jay really exemplifies the thoughtfulness, the empathy, and that passion for innovation and iteration that I think are key to success in this space. He's done great things, and I won't spoil them in advance, but I'd like to introduce Jayiesh Singh, who is the CEO of AbleInnovations. And Jay, thanks for joining us here.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. It's an absolute honor to be here and speaking amongst such great people. So I'll try to keep up. It's also a great moment because I started the company 4 years ago, and many people that helped me in starting the business, Richard McAloon, he's a panelist here. So it's great to see the ecosystem progress and come together, and that is a true honor. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about my journey. So my story began when I was quite young, and I used to volunteer in long-term care facilities. My mom used to work in long-term care, and while there, I built great relationships, but I could also see the challenges that everybody faced. Specifically, I'll speak about my mom first. She's one of the most empathetic caregivers you can have. She really connected with all the residents, but she struggled. She struggled with the mental burden that comes with it, but also the physical burden of physically moving individuals that she really cares about. And she's had, so many shoulder dislocations. Her back has given out many a times. And I'd hear about those stories. And then, the residents, they were my friends. I used to play chess with them while volunteering. They would say this is the worst thing for them. So it's a problem that, that stuck with me at a very young age. And after, this is just volunteering and something that was personal to me. One thing that I always thought about is how can we keep individuals at home longer? And one story that I heard over and over again is, a happy couple is living together. One of them, unfortunately, had a fall in the shower. They need a hip replacement. They never spend a single night again because the other spouse is institutionalized. So that's something that I thought about for nearly 10 years, but my career actually took me in another direction of robotics. So I was doing robotics in the solar industry. I helped develop exoskeletons. But all along, I was thinking, how can I use technology to help older adults and caregivers like my mom, which is why I started AbleInnovations. And the problem that we are solving is that of automating the task of patient transfers, which is the physical task of lifting and moving immobile individuals between surfaces, be it bed stretchers in the future. We want to do bed to wheelchair transfers at home, but right now we're focusing on lateral patient transfers. So just to tell you a little bit more about the problem, it takes between 2 to 8 staff to exert back-breaking effort to conduct a single transfer. We associate a lot of injuries with it, but at a time where you don't have staff whatsoever, it's also leading to a lot of clinical inefficiency. And for the caregiver, it's a negative spiral because you have fewer caregivers, so the ones that are there are under immense burden. They're getting burnt out even more. So it's a really, really bad dynamic, and ultimately it's a poor resident and patient experience. That is why at AbleInnovations, we've developed our first product, which is the Alta platform. The key goal is to allow transferring patients at the push of a button. A caregiver can transfer independently, and right now it's focused on hospitals. It has to be easy to operate. Dr. Nguyen spoke to it. It has to be intuitive. It has to be a smart device, needs to be contactless and dignified for the patient. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey of collaboration and how we got there. So the next slide is not going to look anything like what we were doing, but this is 2018. I had an idea. I had a stuffed toy and I had a bunch of motors. So I put it all together and I'm like, can this be done? And I'm like, okay, it can be done. So then I went to Richard, who was at Impact Center, and I said, hey, Richard, I think I have a business. Can you tell me how to put this thing together? And he said, yeah, let me teach you how to pitch. Let me show you pitch decks and presentations. So, that's a great story. And now he's with AgeWell. Then I met Michael. Richard introduced me to Michael, and he said, you know what, you should really understand the space a bit more. They provided me with the resources to try and prove it out. So in 2019, I'm with Dr. Bruce Wallace. By that time, I had a couple of team members. We'd taken that prototype to be half scale, so the scale of basically pediatric. And the theory then was, it'd be great, we can transfer people, but also lift people off the floor. I met Dr. Bruce Wallace from the SAMS Rehab in Ottawa. Great champion. He got it right away. He's had problems, moving his own family members and loved ones, and he has been an immense champion since then. So very much like the Envisage theory, they were a beachhead. The key thing that we wanted to show was this is safe for patients, but not only safe, but it's going to be comfortable before we take it to the next step, which is in the clinical layer. So we gave him a device. He developed a really smart dummy mannequin that had a lot of sensors, so you could measure the forces on the skin before applying it to any humans, and then he published an independent report on the IEEE journal. So that served as, just quantitative proof that this is safe and comfortable. And that was 2019. Then come forward to nearly 2020. We're a bit more advanced, but this is where we are. You push a button, a platform compresses the bed. It has over a dozen sensors, knows where the bed is, where the patient is, extends out, rolls under the patient. The patient is then transferred onto the device. The device can then be moved to another adjacent clinical area, and then the patient can be transferred off. That's the very simple part of it. The technology has a lot of bells and whistles around safety. It's a connected device, so now hospitals are able to understand who's using the device, when they're using it, what is the weight of the patient. So it gives a lot of good data because it is a connected device as well. And as we get this into the clinical area, we're getting more and more feedback, and that kind of cycle of iteration and product development is always churning with our venture. Before I start the video, all of this accumulated. Dr. Bruce Wallace, he's placed at Elizabeth Briere Hospital and AgeWell. While we were presenting this, let me go back a slide maybe. While we were presenting this device, we met the VP of nursing at Briere, and coincidentally, she was just filing an injury claim on somebody who got injured while moving patients. So she said, I want this device in. What I really want from the device is to show that one person can transfer this independently, and that can meet policy. So she gave us this mandate to do, and I took that mandate back to our collaborators. So I took it to AgeWell, and I said, you know what, we have a real opportunity to make an impact. Can we put a study around this? And we have full support from the clinician. And long story short, we've had our device there for 4 to 6 months. They've tried it out, and it's an absolute pleasure where the hospital made a video for their board on us, and that's what I'm about to show you. Yeah. And if you can play the video and sound.
AbleInnovations' Alta platform really came to life to solve a clinical problem for hospitals in 3 areas. So patient safety and better patient transfers, staff safety, ensuring that staff are able to be working and having the tools required to safely transfer patients, and finally, staff efficiency. So how staff can use this platform to do transfers by themselves rather than the classical two staff or more to transfer a patient.
We've been working with Briere for 2.5 years now. We started with a small juvenile prototype with really just a concept of what we think my product might look like. And very early on, even with our concept, we got very direct and very straightforward feedback on what our product might look like once it got to full scale.
The real-world problem that the Alta is trying to address is that currently it takes at least 2 staff to be in the room to transfer the patient, and the Alta can allow for a single caregiver transfer. In addition, patients experience stress on their body from the slings that are used, and the Alta can reduce that as well.
I believe that using the Alta is going to be very helpful to our unit. One person only can do by themselves transferring the patient, and then also it will help to prevent more injury of the patient.
In addition, even in the last 4 months, I'd say, as we brought our product to the market and over to Breer's Hospital, you guys have been tremendously supportive in the sense of even just providing something as simple as space. Having a space to work in that we can get access to, something as simple as providing us with different types of beds. It seems like a small thing, but for us it makes our iteration process and our testing and our validation happen that much faster.
The ceiling lift, if you're a male, can be a lot more tightening. On the ultra lift, when everything runs smoothly with the ultra lift, it's very easy to get onto it, and you don't feel any strain. The only place I had the first time I had volunteered for it was in my knees and ankles. So they readjusted it, and the second time they came back, all of a sudden it was all gone.
There's really nothing like hitting the front line and actually interacting with patients and nurses. And that's been tremendous for us. We've been able to implement additional modalities in our transfer functions. We've been able to improve our workflows and our human-machine interfaces. And it's helped us iterate that much faster than we could if we were trying to set up simulations and things like that back home.
As I said, the only way to make things better is by trial and error sometimes. There has to be somebody willing to do what I just finished doing to get something that is more beneficial for everybody. Just because I'm a little more broken than I used to be, I'm still willing to put up with whatever has to go with it, so it can get to that stage so that it will not be a problem for people in the future.
So the staff here has been tremendous. As I said, the access, being able to have dedicated facilities that we know if we need to test something or if we need to come on site and get access to staff and get feedback from patients. Like I said, we can't really put a price on that. It's been invaluable to us and our journey so far.
Thank you. Sorry, that's not the end, but I can. No, but that's really what it's all about. Is Gerald, actually, just a bit of a personal story. He's an NRC IRAP employee. He understands the space, and everybody is driving forward in the same direction. We all recognize there's going to be a lot of challenges, but as long as we're all well-intended, and that's what we've built through community, through the network, through empathy, and we've been very lucky to have that support. What Phil and I bring to the table is we understand our strengths and weaknesses. We are good at robotics. We are good at listening. We go to the market and we ask them for specifications and we try to deliver on that. Based on the network effect and the iteration, it's allowed us to get stronger. This is a big initiative. So we have a decent-sized team. We have about 20 people. We brought on excellent investors as a result to continue to support us. There's a lot of interest because the problem that we're solving is only going to grow, and we understand, our technology is only going to evolve and get better and solve more problems. And we've demonstrated our technology at the U.S. Veterans Health Administration. A lot of hospitals are keenly interested, but really it comes down to us being able to break the current paradigm, which is this short staffing. It's getting worse. You can throw money at it, you can throw policy at it, but unless you allow staff to do more with less, it's not going to help. And the predicament of the caregiver is something that we really feel passionate about, and dignified treatment for the resident and patient. And with that, I'll just leave you with a quote. Henry Ford said, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. And with this network, I hope we achieve a lot of success. Thank you.